How's it going, everybody? It's your boy. Whatever you do, never ever 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 overestimate your ability to check your own ego, because especially if you're in industries like entertainment, or if you're on YouTube, or anything where you get a big audience, or you have power, or you have a thing where you are being really successful, or anything like that, it doesn't really matter. Never overestimate your ability to check your own ego, because the chances are, at some point in your life, unless you have amazing self-control, Zen-like powers, Buddhist-like powers even, you will temporarily or even permanently fall to ego. You will fall to the depths at which being an egotist will drag you. So I've been thinking about this a lot, considering all the recent events, and I was thinking, if people who were once considered more humble, people who would be the ones calling out those with the big egos, are themselves falling to ego, then what hope do we all have? Even though I would like to say that I don't have much of an ego, let's be honest, even I have fallen to that. It's hubris, it's arrogance, it's all these things. Everybody, being human, unless they have massive self-control and are Zen-like and Buddha-like, will fall to this. I've fallen to this. Everybody has. And it depends really on self-control. It depends on your personality, how far you fall down, and how you can manage to lift yourself up. Because, as some people will say, it's not good to only be told good things about yourself and think good things about yourself and expect better things about yourself and all that other jazz. Because it can affect those people. It affects those people who warn about the dangers of ego. Those people, the ones who you would never expect to have a big ego. Now, how does this happen? How does this begin? How does anybody who warns of the dangers of ego, who tries to check their own ego, end up gaining one of the biggest egos you could possibly imagine? Well, in many ways, the book starts with them, obviously, because they're the ones who didn't do their own due diligence, who did not have the self-control to basically give in to those desires, those feelings, and opted to basically lavish themselves with the praise of other people. Now, I will get to those other people in a second, but it's this person who did not take a step back to reflect on things, to maybe have some self-criticism, because, you know, you are your own worst critic in many ways. Unless you have a massive ego, you are your own best supporter, because everything you do is the best it could possibly be. This is the best situation, this is the best decision you could make. You are the best, or one of the best. You can do no wrong, because you're not self-evaluating, you're not being self-critical, and if you don't have that voice in the back of your head telling you that you are just a man, or you sure you should be doing this, or are you sure you should be saying that to somebody, are you sure you should be thinking this, what hope have you got? There's a reason why the Romans had that guy in every single pomp and circumstance, every parade that a big general would come back after, you know, a big campaign, whispering in his ear in that chariot, "You are only a man," or "You are but a man." Because they knew about the dangers of ego, they knew about the dangers of power, and they knew about how it corrupts, and how these people's hubris can go and destroy empires, which ultimately happened, although, to be fair, it kind of fizzled out, but I don't want to get into the nerdy history of it. That's what happens. That's the worst thing that could possibly happen due to ego, the collapse of countries and civilizations. So yeah, these people don't have the self-control that they would like to claim that they have. Now, personally, also, another thing is that maybe they were never honest to begin with. Maybe they did this purely to criticise other people, but really were no better than those people. Maybe they were the types of people who would, in one breath, say, yeah, this person has such a big ego, they can't do this, you can't. Like, you should always make sure that you don't have a big ego, you know. Do the things that I've already mentioned in this video, but are the ones who are the most acceptable to the things that egotists are susceptible to. So would like to be more with people who praise them rather than people who criticise them, and would rather be, you know, lavished, and would rather not be told these things, that you can be wrong, you are just a person, and they would like to think, and probably do think, that what they're doing is amazing, and they're God's gift to mankind. And you see it over and over again. These people become what they hate, or at least what they claim to hate. And it's a sad story. But of course, the book starts with them, but it does not end with them, because as a lot of people and famous YouTubers have said, it's the fans, it's the audience as well that are partly to blame, because they're the ones who, until it's far too late anyway, are the ones who are pushing this praise. You know, it is warranted as well. I'm not saying it isn't unwarranted, but, you know, their adulation, their respect for this person perhaps goes a bit too far, to the point that they don't criticise this person. Maybe they don't, if they know him or her, or if they can talk to this person, they don't try and maybe tell them to take a step back or anything. No, they continue the cycle. They keep giving them more and more praise. They keep putting them on this pedestal more and more and more, and it gets to their head due to the nature of humanity, because it is human. It is human to not want to be criticised and be in an area full of negativity. You want to be in a place full of positivity, where people love you and respect you and like everything that you do. Like, that's a human thing. But as with every human thing, there is the least amount of it, and there is too much of it. And when supporters don't try and, I'm not saying, you know, control the person that they like, but just to, you know, keep an eye on them, to tell them, maybe you're going a bit too far here, calm down, relax, or that wasn't really that good, maybe you should change something, but not do it in such a nasty, trollish way that they would, you know, become stubborn and begin to hate their own audience, as a lot of people in that guy with the glasses have done. Maybe, just maybe, these people wouldn't have such a hard time with their egos. Maybe it would only be lessened. But because these people feed into it unconsciously, they don't actually realise they're doing it, but because these fans, because these admirers and supporters do this, it appears as if most people like them, when really, deep down, there's a lot more hatred than they actually realise. A person who's in an environment where they have the praise but also the criticism in equal amounts, I think is less likely to fall to ego than in a place where they have nothing but praise or even negativity. Although I think if you're in a place where it's full of negativity, maybe you could get some kind of ego boost, but maybe you would just say that you're better than everybody else because everybody else is so scummy. And then maybe you go out in the world and you think you're the good do-good or something. But I think that's probably a bit far-fetched to think, but it's an interesting thought nonetheless. We're humans, and in real life, you're not in places where it's 50% criticism, 50% praise. I was just trying to give you a rough estimate as to the ideal scenario, the ideal environment for a YouTuber or a personality to be in. An atmosphere with people who are not afraid to praise them, but also equally are not afraid to criticise them. But of course, it also comes down to how these people deal with that criticism and that praise. Do they let the praise go to their head? Do they accept the criticism? Do they at least think about it? You don't have to accept the criticism, because that's all ultimately down to you, but you can also at least entertain it. I think just entertaining it alone is better than just ignoring it or lashing out at it. But ultimately, we will all have that fall. I think we will, unless you are that special person, they're a minority, we will all have that fall. It's going to happen because you don't realise it's going to happen to you. You think it's never going to happen. You say to yourself and to others, oh, I could never have such a big ego. I could never do that. Well, you will eventually, especially when you're in a place where there's nothing but praise and people lavish you and worship you. It gets to your head because you're human. If you're a normal human being, that's going to happen. I mean, how can it not when you're in that kind of environment where it's so positive and people are either just unwilling, don't care, or are unable to provide that one voice of reason, where you don't have that because you will lose that voice of reason at the back of your head when you keep seeing things, because it's not necessarily your fault. When you're viewing reality, all you see is things working out for you, doing the same thing that you've been doing for the past, I don't know, couple of years, months, weeks. You're going to think, yeah, that's great. Just keep doing this over and over and over again because it's working and people love it. They love me. Hell, even I love me because it's working. For once, I have self-confidence. But maybe it isn't actually going to work all the time. Maybe eventually it will grow stale, what you're doing. Maybe it will end up hurting you rather than benefiting you. But regardless, that fall's going to happen. I mean, it does happen when you do end up having a massive ego, Will you have the strength, will you have the ability to see what people are telling you, the ones who are brave enough to step up and say, check your ego, what you're doing is wrong? Because in my opinion, one of the major symptoms of a big ego is the dismissal of other people, dismissing what they do, dismissing who they are, based entirely on your own premise that, oh, you know, what I'm doing is cool, what I'm doing is amazing, what those people doing is cringy, or it's beneath me, or it's not good enough, or they're just plebs. You know what are you doing? Nobody's gonna like that. Everybody likes what I'm doing. I'm the top dog, I'm the real deal. Or we. Because you can have a collection of egotists as well. It's showing off. It's when you become a peacock, essentially. You're peacocking. When you peacock about, say, I don't know, your intellect, or your money, or your material possessions, or how good your material is, or how good you are at something. Yes, you might be good at these things, but you aren't that good. Because unless you are the best, you aren't always the best. There's somebody who is better than you. And even then, when you get older, there will be a younger person better than you. Sports stars will know what I'm talking about. People who are in sports. When you hit that 30-year-old mark, or at least in your early 30s, that decline is very fast, unless you are a freak of nature, like, say, a Ryan Giggs or a Zanetti. That's some football reference. And the thing is, other people will feed into that, because then they will be saying, yeah, he is the best. What are you doing? Because people copy each other. People create, I guess you would say it's a community or a movement or a mob, and this mob will find other people who they perceive to be the outliers, the enemies, who are criticising this other person, when originally they probably would have been friends, or at the very least acquainted with each other and would not have any beef if it weren't for the fact that this guy's ego was out of control and casting judgment on everybody else and making life difficult for everybody. These people feed into that. They make it look like to him he's doing something right, when really he probably isn't, he's doing something wrong. I think most people will come out of the ego at some point in their lives. Some of them may take decades, others may take weeks, others may take months or a couple of years. Usually it is age and experience that mellows. I mean, people do naturally mellow over time, but some people don't. So, or at least they mellow, but they don't lose that ego. So certain things will have mellowed, maybe, but that self-love is still there. I'm going to end this here because I'm rambling too much and it's incoherent. So until next time, people, it's been your boy. I'll see you later.